Hey guys, and welcome to the Ghost Biker Garage. Tonight you're riding solo with me, the Ghost Biker. Unfortunately, my guest that I was supposed to have on here tonight from the historic witch's house in Salem, Massachusetts, had to cancel. Hopefully we can get her on at a later date. I know my schedule of guests is booked up through the summer, and I didn't have any openings till the end of the year. So I'm going to be reaching back out to her, and hopefully she'll be able to come on, tell us some great stories about that area and what she does. So for tonight, you're stuck with me. But I think we've got a pretty interesting topic that I know I've always been very interested in, because if any of you have ever listened to myself as well, on any of these different podcasts or just listening to me talking, I've always talked about, spending time with my grandmother and hearing about Appalachian folklore and superstitions and storytelling. And so really that's how I got started and got interested in all of this. And we want to talk tonight about superstitions for motorcyclists or bikers. As a whole, us bikers tend to be a very superstitious and traditional bunch. And so we're going to talk about that specifically, but I was hoping that you guys will put some of your superstitions and traditions over here in the comments, and we can kind of talk about them. I've only got an hour tonight because I'm actually traveling out of town this evening for some things that I've got going on this weekend. So I'm actually leaving after the show, but we could really spend a whole lot of time talking about this one particular topic, because just in the Appalachian culture itself and here in the South, there are so many superstitions and traditions. So I'd like to take just a minute and say hello to you all who are over here in the chat room. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out with me. Hey, Chris. Hey, Peppy. Hey, Sandy. Hey, David. David was on last week. We had a great show. If you guys missed that, I hope you will check that out. Sandy says she never breaks a poll. So if you guys will go ahead and share these in the comments here, then what I'll do is I'll pull all this up. But I definitely, I'll get to the Southern ones here in a few minutes, but I wanted to take a few minutes and just talk about a few of the events that we've had going on. It's been a very busy month. We've had quite a few events going on, and I saw a lot of you at these different events. And so, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for sharing and helping me get the word out, as well as, attending these events and helping me out at these particular events. So the first one, and you guys have heard me talk about this one countlessly, over the last couple months. I partnered with the Masonic Writers Association Widows' Sons, specifically the Hillbilly chapter in Robbins, Tennessee. And we did a dart run for my dad 2 weeks ago on the 15th. And we had great participation. During the actual event, we actually raised just a little over $1,000, and I put a call out to, where people can send checks if they couldn't go to the event and wanted to attend. And as of this date, we've raised just a little over $1,300 for the scholarship fund that we've created in honor of my dad, who was a 39-year educator in the field of science, as well as a 50-year plus Mason. So thank you guys so much. The money that was raised is creating a scholarship for students at Scott County High School who are interested in pursuing a career in the field of science. So before we get into a little bit more, I know some of you have seen this video, but we put a video together highlighting the event. So I wanted to take a few moments and share that. And then we'll move on, because like I said, this whole area up there in Scott County, it's a poor rural community in northern Tennessee. And, one of the things that was so important to my dad was creating an opportunity for people who wouldn't be able to maybe go to college or be able to afford, the maintenance of college, as well as providing education. So I just wanted to share this right quick in case you all haven't seen it. It was a little video I put together of the day's events. So again, thank you guys so much for participating. We had both riders and non-riders that participated in this event. And it was something that we intend to do every year. We'll give out the first scholarship to the students next year for the graduating class of next year. So we're working to build that up, and we'll be doing several different things, maybe another dart run. But while we're on the topic of bikers, we had a great ride this past weekend. It was our third annual tradition that we started doing the haunting ride with Ghost Biker. We partnered with the R.M. Brooks General Store in Rugby, Tennessee. I know you guys have heard me talk a lot about that location as well. I mean, I just can't get enough history. And anytime you can do a bike ride that ends at a bike event, then, especially at a historic location like that, it's always a lot of fun. And so this year we had almost 200 bikes at the entire event. And the money there goes to, everyone's kind of suffered with COVID and everything. And, the General Store is no exception. So this is something, she does this in a car show, and this is something that really kind of helped with her historic general store. It was a full weekend. Dr. Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal helped me out with this. So thank you so much, Dr. Sumner. I see you over here in the comments. But it started on Friday, and we had a great group come up from Alabama, the Litas. Actually, they came from several different states. They were represented, the Huntsville chapter, the Birmingham chapter of the Litas, and this is a female riding group that is nationwide. I think they started out west. And then we had, so their chapters came, they had a couple out of Talladega that came up, as well as several from Kentucky that came down. And they actually camped at the General Store. And Dr. Sumner and I, because she was helping me with the ride, she came over and helped me. On Friday night, we did a special event for them where we sort of told ghost stories and had a campfire experience there where they were camping. We talked about the haunts of historic Rugby And because a lot of them not being from the area and not even being from the state, they weren't familiar with the area. And so they actually did a ride to Brushy Mountain State Prison, which, as you guys know, that's one of my favorite locations. So Dr. Sumner and I went over, and we were able to showcase our videos that we filmed in those locations, tell about some of the local haunts, and then also talk about some of the different things we experienced. So it was a great night. And then on Saturday morning, we met over in Rocky Top, Tennessee, which, if you guys are familiar with that location, there's so much history there. And I'm actually going to be releasing a video from the ride that talks about all the different haunted and historic locations that we rode through. But Rocky Top, Tennessee, in and of itself, has such a cool history. It's changed names multiple times just in my 41 years of living. But it was originally Coal Creek, named that because of all the mines and everything and the mining and everything that took place over there. So it was originally Coal Creek, and then Lake City, and now Rocky Top. And so we started over in the original Coal Creek area, rode Highway 116, the Devil's Triangle, which is such a cool ride. There's just so many interesting historical things that have happened just in that area. And the Coal Creek Wars, there's cemeteries that has all of the different miners who lost their lives during the Coal Creek Wars, mine explosions. There's a lot of different memorials through there, but we'll definitely be highlighting the ride because it's a very dangerous ride. And, there's a lot of drop-offs, switchback curves, and just beautiful scenery to see along the way. So be on the lookout for that I'm hoping to get that released next week. It shows the history of the ride and the area through there. And then it also will show scenes from the actual bike event. The bike event, we had about 30 bikes. I'm not sure if I just said that or not, but we had 30 bikes on the ride, and great group of riders. We've got pictures posted of that over on the site. And then ended there at Brooks' bike event, which lasted for several hours. And as a whole, we had almost 200 bikes coming down from southern Kentucky, and then also coming up from Alabama. I think we even had a couple people from North Carolina that even came over. So it was a great night. So again, be on the lookout for that to come through because there are a lot of tragic and ghostly stories from that haunting ride. We're going to be doing another bike event with Brooks Store in the fall. So if you weren't able to catch us on this one, I believe it's going to be on September 25th. It's going to be the final Saturday in September. And we're going to have another haunted ride. I try to start these rides from different locations just so we can go through different areas. That area of Morgan, Scott, Fentress counties up on the Cumberland Plateau, and then in southern Kentucky, there's just a lot of history grouped into a small area with some great riding roads. So we're going to try to plan out another really great ride for September, and then also try to have another ride or two planned between now and then, which again, these rides are all free. So be on the lookout for that. But while we're on the topic of motorcycles, that will transition us into the superstitions that a lot of different bikers hold. And like I said, go ahead, and it's a little challenging to talk and man the comments over here on the side. So just bear with me as I get with, as I go back and forth here, and I will definitely try not to leave anyone out. We got Dave Harris here in the chat room. I know he actually did a ride this past Sunday up to Brushy Mountain Prison as well and rode the Triangle. So I look forward to hearing what he thought of the area as well. So he did it on a different day than us. But anyway, so the first tradition or superstition that a lot of bikers carry forward with and have done for years is actually the blessing of the bikes. And it's something that takes place usually at the start of every riding season. And it's something that a lot of different bikers do. Towns all across America have these usually in early spring, right around Easter time. They're usually non-denominational because you've got bikers from every different religion that ride, and so it doesn't fall within a specific religion. And bikers will meet up for fellowship and wishing everyone well and to get their bikes blessed. And ironically, on this ride that we had on Saturday, when we met over in the old ShopRite parking lot, we were waiting for everyone to get there, and a group of bikers pulled up to the side. I thought they were actually going to be riding with us. And I noticed, their patches and everything that they had, and they were part of the Christian Motorcyclists Association. And so I tried to go over and greet everybody as they came in. And so when I went over to see them, they had actually just gotten off the Triangle and was stopping there for a rest. And so what was really cool is they weren't really coming to join the ride. They had just ironically stopped there. And so they asked us if we minded if they blessed the ride and blessed any bikes that they wanted there. And so I will never turn down a blessing, and no matter who it's from. So they did a nice blessing of the ride, and we started off the ride great. And it was just a great time had by all. With no issues or anything like that. So that's one that a lot of people follow, is the blessing of the bikes. I see here, Joe says we do a big blessing of the bike show here in Hell, Michigan. So is that correct? Is there a place called Hell, Michigan? I may have. I'm not familiar with there. That's very interesting. But that was really cool. Another superstition that a lot of bikers follow is that you're not supposed to ride with the back pegs down on the passenger seat. So my bike is only a solo bike. I don't have back pegs, so this is not a problem for me. But they say if you don't have a passenger, you're supposed to put those back pegs up, because it's kind of like the story of the road goblins, which we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. But it's said that if you ride with your pegs down, that you're more than likely to pick up otherworldly passengers. And so if there are spirits out and about, especially if you're riding in an area like the Devil's Triangle on the old Freighterville Highway, where all of the Freighterville miners were killed, you just might pick up a passenger. So it's good to put those pegs up. The only other kind of caveat to that is that if you're actually riding in a funeral, then you're supposed to put the pegs down. If you're riding in a funeral for a fallen biker or for one of your friends, you're always supposed to ride with the pegs down, because it's said that gives that biker an opportunity to go for one last ride. I know we have a lot of biker funerals around here where people will ride for, the ride will stretch for miles long. So that's the only exception to that superstition. Another superstition that has always been something that bikers have followed is they say that green bikes are supposed to be considered bad luck, which really kind of sucks, because green is my favorite color. And my next bike that I'm going to be getting is a military green bike. But for a long time, all of these bikes were considered to be bad luck. And it was supposed to be a terrible color for motorcycles. And they didn't really, and because of this stigma, green motorcycles weren't really very good sellers for motorcycles. So it was said if you rode a green motorcycle, it was believed that you were more likely to crash and die. And since nobody likes to do that, the sale for green motorcycles, they went down. And Sandy brings up a good point: green cars to cause of racing. That's exactly true. That's one of the facts that I found when I was looking into this superstition further, that actually most of the accidents that occurred with racers were green cars or green motorcycles. And Kawasaki bikes are green, so apparently either they broke that superstition, or they don't know. But So the bikes became unpopular, and they believe that this started during World War One. And soldiers, they in World War One, they rode these motorcycles typically to carry messages to people, or to get away to different locations really quickly. And so, because of this, they were easily ID'd as military, and it made them a target for the enemy. So, in that case, if you were riding a green motorcycle, you were typically military and more likely to experience bad luck. Um, you and they I was looking at this, and there were several things that they talked about, I guess, in trying to not debunk the superstition, but I guess to explain the superstition further. But because these military bikes were all green, the used bikes were then shipped back and sold at home as surplus. And so they had been ridden hard, they had been shot at, they were war worn, as well as had issues with the tires and such. And so they believe that because they did sell these in surplus and stuff later, that if a person purchased one of these bikes, they were more involved. They had more accidents just because of the wear and tear on the motorcycle. So that's another reason why they believe that these bikes were said to be unlucky. So I'm still going to go ahead and get my green bike because, like I said, that's one of my favorite colors. So, so yeah. Another biker superstition that they talk about, and this is kind of a common sense one, but they always say, drop your helmet, drop your head. And what that means, obviously, is, if your helmet hits the ground, they say that your head will soon follow. And so, biker helmets are, even if you just get the little small ones, I always wear a full face. But even if you get kind of the brain buckets or whatever, they're expensive. And so if you drop a helmet, it will indeed crack the helmet and damage it. And so, you obviously don't want to be wearing a helmet that's been dropped, because if you do have an accident, that helmet won't protect you. So there's no factual basis to this actual superstition, but other than the fact that if you drop your helmet and damage it, it won't protect your head in a crash. So another one is stopping to help is good karma. So this is not necessarily just a superstition or tradition, but just good karma. Bikers have a strong connection with each other. There's a strong sense of brotherhood and everything. And so with this connection, if you break down, someone will almost always stop to help you. I've had this actually happen in several different situations. I was riding in Colorado and riding across a couple states, and actually I was riding solo, which can be kind of scary. And I actually broke down in Nebraska, and I was staying in Colorado. And so, if any of y'all have been to Nebraska and Kansas, there is not much around. And so I actually broke down on the side of the road and was able to kind of hobble the bike to an exit, which was right on the Nebraska-Wyoming line. And I had, as soon as I got off the bike, I had another lone biker, and he just looked like what you see on the movies, leather skin, and he was wearing leather, and just he was out, on a very long haul ride. And he actually came over, helped me, tried to get me going, and there was a wheel bearing damage, so I actually had to wait on the side of the road to be towed for a couple hours from somebody from mid-Nebraska to tow me into Colorado. So that happened. And then I've had several instances. Another in particular, I was waiting on some friends in Chattanooga, and I was just sitting in a parking lot waiting, and I had 5 people. I think I had waited about 25 minutes on the people to come, and I had 5 people actually pull over and ask if I needed help. And people even asking if they wanted me to wait or wanted them to wait with me. So, so definitely the biker code is strong, and definitely something that you want to do, because it says that if you stop to help a biker in need, then if you're in need later on, someone will stop to help you. Likewise, if you ride on by, you will eventually experience the same as that person who's on the side of the road. So again, it's just good karma, and something that I've never really heard of a biker on the side of the road that didn't get help. Excuse me. Another common superstition is, and I actually didn't know this one until I started reading, kind of looking some of this up and looking up the origins of it. Don't ride a dead man's bike. And it's kind of interesting. So if you believe in ghosts, which, if you're watching this podcast, you either believe in ghosts or you're a biker, you're best not to buy a secondhand bike from someone that belonged to someone who has passed away. Superstition says that if his spirit is still wandering and he sees you riding his bike, that he will push you off that bike and forever possess that bike. So I don't know. I've never purchased a bike from someone that's deceased, but I do know that I wouldn't want to take that chance. I know a lot of bikers love their bikes, but yeah. So I actually didn't know this one. I don't know if any of you guys have heard that as well. Melanie Lloyd says, "Amen. That's what we do. Take care of one another." Biker code. And again, Melanie was one that rode on that ride and has always been so super supportive. So absolutely agree. Thank you so much. Chris Sumner, jumping back to that past superstition we talked about, she says, "I've dropped my bike 3 times while riding solo, and all 3 times other bikers have stopped to help." So, so absolutely, I hear stories like that all the time. Let's see here. I'm sure I'm not missing any before we get to the really big one that a lot of people have heard about. And that's actually the one of the guardian bell, or the Gremlin Bell. And I know if you've been to any bike events or been around motorcycles, a lot of the time if you really look at the bikes, you'll see a little bitty bell hanging either under the triple tree, usually somewhere very low on the bike. And I'll get into the whole legend behind that, but I've got one here. Mine is, of course, on my bike. Every bike I've ever had, I've had a bell on it, but they are little bitty bells. I don't know if you can see it very well or not, but this one right here is in the shape of a sugar skull. This is actually one that I got from my friend, Dr. Sumner, because if you know Soul Sisters Paranormal, they've got the skull in their logo. And so when we first became friends and I found out that she too was a biker, I got her this bell, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. But it's always been said that there are evil spirits out on the road, or gremlins or goblins. And this is something that's actually not just believed in the biker community, but it's also, something I know pilots also believe in, gremlins and goblins that will take over their planes and that sort of thing. But evil spirits are said to latch onto your bike and cause mechanical failure, mischief, or even cause the cause the bike or biker to crash. And so a very, very important aspect of this ritual that goes along with this superstition is that the bell needs to be given to somebody. It will work if you buy one for yourself, but it's supposedly not supposed to be very lucky. So if somebody gives it to you, then it's supposed to have double the luck. And it's always said that when you see a biker with a bell on their bike, you know that they have been blessed with the most important thing in life, which is friendship from a fellow biker. So like I said, when I met Dr. Sumner and found out that she rode, I wanted to, and she had a new motorcycle and she didn't have a bell for her bike. And so being a sister biker, I wanted to give her a bell to go on her bike to give her good luck. Something that Sandy says, most bikers won't let you sit or touch their bike. I dated an Avenger and your life expectancy will be cut short. And that is very true as well. You never sit on or touch someone's bike that's sitting there unless they give you permission to, just because you will be, it won't end very well. But the story of this, I've found that there are several different legends of how the biker's bell got started. But the most common that I found, it's very interesting, and I will try to tell that to you. The story goes that, and it comes out of the Southwest in the Arizona, New Mexico type area. But the story goes that there was an old gray bearded biker who was out riding late at night in the desert, kind of in the Arizona area. He had just come from a trip to Mexico, and in his saddlebags, they were full of gifts and trinkets for kids that lived in an orphanage where he worked. He was riding alone, and as he was riding, he was just feeling really blessed for, his own life, the children where he worked, his biker friends, and most importantly, his bike, because it had never let him down. And he was real connected. And if you know a biker, we are really connected with our motorcycles. They are essentially our babies or our significant others. So he had been on the highway for many, many miles. And and as he was going through the desert, this supposedly happened at night. And as he was riding through, he didn't know that there were road goblins that were waiting for him or waiting for their next victim up the road. And so as road goblins, like I said, they're little creatures. They leave obstacles in your path, like we call them tire gators, the pieces of tire that's on the road, old mufflers, fuel, even the lines on the road. People don't realize this, but the center line and the sidelines, those are really slick when you're on the road. Sometimes they're slicker than others. And if a road's been patched, the road snakes that are going down them, those are also, very slick as well. So it's said that the goblins are what creates those obstacles to wreck bikers. And they'll also chase animals and deer into the path of unsuspecting bikers. And so And that can be very deadly for a biker. The road goblin's sole purpose is to make sure that the biker crashes so that they can, kind of add those notches to their belt. But they're nasty and they're evil. As the biker went around the curve, the road goblins, they ambushed him and they caused him to crash and skid. And when he awoke, he was in the ditch and he was just, he was really beat up and really in a bad way. It damaged his bike so bad he wasn't able to get on it. And one of the saddlebags actually ended up detaching and ripping off the bike that he had. And so as he was laying there, the road goblins had come up to him and they were going to try to finish him off. And he started looking around and he started throwing different things from his saddlebags and, trying to hit the goblins, hurt them, and, do anything he could to distract them. And so finally, after he had thrown everything from his bag, he found a tiny little bell and he started ringing it. He didn't know if it would help, but he was going to do everything he could so that he could get back to the children at the home and, leave what he had, for them. So the sound of the bell confused the goblins. And because it was starting to confuse him, he just kept ringing, and he was ringing the bell as hard and as much as he could. And so not very far away, there were other bikers coming down the road. They weren't aware of the crash, so because they were like about maybe 30 miles or so behind him. But as they were coming up, they started hearing, but this was before the curve where he had crashed. They started hearing the bells ringing, and they were really confused by it. They thought that was something that was really odd to hear in the middle of the desert. So they got off their bikes and went to investigate, and they came upon the old biker in the ditch with the goblins standing around him. And so, without any concern for their own safety, the bikers attacked the gang of road goblins, killed several of them, and ran off the rest. And so the old biker was so happy, that these guys had saved his life, that he, was offering them money to see if, they could, help him. Or, I mean, he had offered them money for them helping him, but they refused to, get any type of payment. So to show his gratitude and not to leave them without something for the good deed, the biker, he cut off 2 pieces of leather from his saddlebags and tied them to the 2 bells that he had left in his bag and that he had been ringing at these goblins. And so he told his new friends that with these bells attached to their bike, that they would be protected from the road goblins. And if they were ever in any trouble, all they were supposed to do was ring the bell, and a fellow biker would come to their aid. And so that's what I mean whenever you see a biker that has a bell on their bike, that they've been blessed with the most important thing in life, which again is friendship from a fellow biker. Other people, they believe that road goblins actually live on the motorcycles because the motorcycles are so fun to ride. So they actually live on these bikes. And again, that's the cause of some of the different issues of flat tires and, different mechanical errors happen with the motorcycles. But they say that these evil road spirits, they can't live near a bell because if with the ringing, it's like they say their hearing is so hypersensitive, and that the constant ringing can confuse them and drive them insane. So they lose their grip with the constant ringing of the bells, fall onto the pavement, and they say that this is how potholes are formed. So, like I said, if you buy your own bell, it will still work, but it's best to get it as a gift from somebody because it means that you have a friend that's looking out for you. And so if you steal a bike, steal a bike or steal a bell, you are actually stealing the road gremlins and the evil that comes along with them, and that the consequences will not be good. And like I said, these bells are actually more of a tradition rather than a superstition or a tradition that goes along with that. So it's kind of a long-winded story, but like I said, I've seen different stories about how these came about. Some people say that the road gremlins live inside of the potholes, but the one that I've found the most has been that this biker that had just been to Mexico was the oldest traditional story that I had found regarding that. And so you almost always see bells on bikes. So I'm going to look through a few of these comments here. Again, thank you guys so much. And if you have any comments or anything as far as traditions and superstitions go ahead and put these here in the comments. I'd like to say hello to Brian from Bearded Paranormal. Thank you so much for always being so supportive and tuning in. Let's see here. I'm looking to make sure that I haven't missed anything here. Let's see. Yes, gravel on the road. I see Sandy is talking about the gravel on the road. Gravel on the road, as well as something that people don't realize, is cut grass. We've That's one thing we encounter around here. And if you're mowing your grass and you have a lot of motorcycles on the road, or any motorcycles on the road, don't aim that grass into the road, because it makes it as slick as ice on a biker. So it's just kind of an asshole move. So make sure you clean that grass up. Jolly says, do you have to be a biker to give a biker a bell? No, you don't. Again, to me, it's one of those things that, it's wishing someone else well, and, sending good blessings and good vibes to somebody. So absolutely not. It's the act of giving that, that combats that. Hello, Dee Dee. Thanks for tuning in. And like Dr. Sumner said, no, you just have to care about the biker. That is a great question. Thank you. I know Jolly's brother rides, and actually I saw him a few years ago at a blessing of the bikes, and so always good to run into Mark. And Dee Dee says, I didn't know that on the grass. I don't, but now I know. Yeah, it's that's something a lot of people don't realize. And I think I was actually just talking about this with a couple other bikers, because while we were riding the Devil's Triangle this past week, there was a lot of cut grass. And when you're riding on a mountainside that has no shoulders on the opposite side, you don't have really anywhere to go. And these are just steep drop-offs with, no shoulder and way down. So we were actually just talking about, but it's actually illegal in several states if you're caught with spraying grass out into the road and you don't clean that up. So just keep that in mind for your fellow bikers out there. I was looking here, a couple other things that I didn't know how long it was going to take. Telling the story of the bell and that sort of thing as far as with bikers. But I know several other superstitions that have always been big kind of around our household. And I think I've got a couple here. At my grandmother's house, she always hung horseshoes up. And this was the grandmother that, shared all these different stories with me. And, enlightened me and told me about, the different superstitions and traditions of Appalachia. And this is something I know that a lot of different people did this. And she actually had the horseshoes hanging down, but they say you could hang them either way over the different doors. And if you hung them up in this shape, it was said that it would keep the devil out of your house as well as bring you good luck. And so with it being up like this, it supposedly holds the luck inside like a bowl. If it's like this, then it said that it will bring good luck. It will pour good luck over your household. And so I know that there were times, I believe my grandmother, certain times of the year, she would flip them. And like I said, she had them over every door. She had them over her bedroom doors, and then she had them over every door of the house that you walked in. And so she would flip them every year. And I'd really like to look into it a little bit further to see what those dates were, because it always seemed like a certain time every year that she would flip those. And because of this, she always had the rule inside of her house that that she would, you didn't ever go inside, or like if you came in the kitchen door, you always went out the kitchen door as well. You never went in the kitchen door and then went out another door. You always went out out the door that you came in. And that's said to bring bad luck if you don't do that. I know I see some different comments here. Chris says they were always hung upwards in our house. Sandy Wolf says luck runs out upside down. And Peppy says, I was told if hung upside down, all evil is drained from the dwelling. And see, that was, I think, my grandmother's belief on that as well. And like I said, she would flip hers. And what's interesting about a lot of these different Appalachian traditions is the fact that they all were different based on what part of the mountain you lived in. I'm from East Tennessee, and so there's a very big difference between East, Middle, and West Tennessee of the land and the geographical the geographical topography of the area. And so in East Tennessee, where I'm from, up in the Scott County, Oneida type area, these traditions varied based on, as we'd say, what holler you were from. And so one area believed, kind of one way. And these traditions, even though they were all very similar, they might be just a little bit different, depending on the different area that you're from. And so, it was also said, and the reason people used horseshoes, and again, we could get into a whole big topic just about this in and of itself, but this is an Irish tradition, and a lot of Irish and Scotch Irish in the area that I'm from, as well as different Native American backgrounds up in that area. But it's said that a blacksmith was a very lucky occupation. Dee Dee asks, was my grandmother lucky? Absolutely. I would say so. She lived to be 95, and she was very sharp-witted, and she would tell stories. She was born in 1908, and she would tell stories from back then, and they never changed. She was also a twin, and she cooked with lard every day. So I would definitely consider her to be lucky. And Jolly, I would definitely encourage you to get some horseshoes. I took the ones that my grandmother, and I'll get to that here in a second, Janet. I took the ones that my grandmother had in her house, and I've got get them here at my house, as well as one that I actually carry with my paranormal equipment and keep it in there for good luck. Janet, no, we were talking about the biker traditions, but because we finished with those, I was kind of talking a little bit about Southern traditions. You hang the horseshoe on your door. So I apologize for any confusion, or that if I jumped topic and was confusing anybody. Sandy mentioned, no one mentioned black cats crossing the road. You make an X. We always heard that one as well. You were supposed to make an X. And then I had seen somewhere up here, let's see, I'm looking where it was mentioned, throw salt over your shoulder when spilled. Absolutely. If you spill salt, you're supposed to throw that over your shoulder. Let's see here. And as Chris said, yeah, we switch gears. We're gearing down for the end of the show here. Again, I apologize for any confusion, but a couple different, superstitions. I know that, and like I said, I would actually love to do another show on this, just because there are so many. One of my favorite books is the Foxfire books. My grandmother, she had all of these, and it talks about like planting by the signs and moonshining, faith healing, and then just different things that some people would call backwoods witchcraft, but Really, it's just mountain living. So the Foxfire books, those are always really, really good. And that's where I grew up reading and looking at a bunch of those. So we'll try to do another episode on that. Another book that I was reading, that's really, really good. And I'm hoping to maybe get the author of this book on the show is Backwoods Witchcraft, called Conjure and Folk Magic from Appalachia. And don't let the name fool you. It backwoods witchcraft has a different definition and connotation than what people would typically think. It's not really witchcraft. It's things such as planting by the signs. My grandmother, when she would plant the garden, and she taught my dad this. And so we learned this as well, that, I can remember going down there and they would be getting ready to plant certain crops or harvest certain crops. And they would talk about what the signs were in, if the signs were in, the hands, the heart, or whatever. And so different things grew better planted under these different signs. And so I can remember several Sundays going down to my grandmother's and Dad talking to her and talking about just how, are you going to do this week or whatever? And it's like, yes, well, the signs are in whatever. And so, they would kind of talk about that. And just as Sandy said, Mother Earth magazine was good too. Absolutely. And Matt Waddell loved the Foxfire books. So definitely check those out. I think they probably have some newer versions of those old school books. Let's see. Peppy says, I was also told that if you toast a biker with a drink, they will have a safe and prosperous journey. That's a great one too. And I've actually seen that on several different occasions as well when we've been at different bike events or bike functions. They will always toast the biker as they go off. That's a great one. Thank you, Peppy. Jolly says, my granny followed all of these backwoods traditions as well. And it's very interesting stuff. And it is, because when you're looking at whether it be, the biker superstitions as well as the Appalachian folk traditions and such, with that, you've got folk cures, you've got charms, you've got specific chants. I know one of them, and it's an Irish thing. The Irish in the Appalachia, they would actually spit on their babies for good luck. Okay, I guess whatever works, but they would spit on their babies. Another one is the midwives would actually put a little bit of ash in the baby's mouth while they're breastfeeding. And that was supposed to keep evil away from the babies. So that's a few things. I know a couple other things, like when you're talking about signs, just a few different things, in Appalachia, a sign is believed to predict the future. Not like an omen or anything, but they don't foretell of negative things that are going to happen. And so they say that like a chin dimple is a sign of a bad character. The dimples on the chin are said to be made by the devil's shoe. They say that tingling or itching of your ears are a sign that someone's talking about you. If it's your left ear, you're being gossiped about. If it's your right, then good things are being said. I know Grandma always told us if the palm of your hand was itching, that somebody was going to be giving you money. If the sole of your foot's itching, it was a sign that you were about to embark on a long journey. If you have a candle that's supposedly hard to light, it's a sign that rain is coming. I remember Grandma talking about that with the lights. If a bulb blew, she would always say maybe that was a sign that rain was coming. And they say that dreaming of bees is a sign of good fortune, which bees are always a positive sign. So I can definitely see that. Some different superstitions they talk about if an acorn, well, they're acorns. We always call them acorns. If an acorn is placed on a window, it will protect your house from lightning strikes. If you see an ant nest and you walk on it, if you walk on any of these little ant hills or whatever, that will cause it to rain that day. And then I know there was a German tradition that if a man wiped his hands on a girl's apron, then he was sure to fall in love with her. Make sure I said that right. If a man wipes his hands on a woman's apron, then he was sure to fall in love with her. And like I said, the Irish tradition of spitting on a new baby will give the child good luck. Again, I don't know if people do that, but let's see. And then as far as, omens, and of course that's a phenomenon that's believed to tell the future, and usually it would signify change. And most of the time it was negative. They would say that a chicken laying an uneven number of eggs was an omen of danger. Or if a rabbit crossed your path before sunrise, you would have unhappiness during your day if a rabbit crossed your path before the sun rose that morning. Grandma would also talk about dough for baking bread, and if it cracked while being shaped, that there would be a funeral soon. So I know she made biscuit bread every day, and so she would talk about that. And then also calling out the name of a deceased person while dreaming is an omen of death. So that's just a couple of them. There's a lot, sweeping under someone's feet when they're sitting there. I know Grandma would never, if she was sweeping the porch and if I was sitting on the porch, she would never sweep under your feet because, that has to do with the wedding. And I'm seeing some really good ones over here. Sandy, and am I mistaken, Sandy? You're from Mississippi area, correct? I want to make sure that I'm saying that right. She says if a bird poops on you, it's good luck. I've heard that actually as well. And then they also say if a bird, and it depends on the specific bird, if a bird comes in your house, that can actually, especially if it's a blackbird or a crow or raven, that is a sign of death. The bird is come to call someone. Itchy hand, good luck. Dream of a birth means death. I've heard that, and I've also heard the same. If you dream about death, it means that there's a birth coming. They also talk about the death bell in your ears. If you get a ringing in your ears, that's supposed to be the death bell. And then David says, dreaming of chickens is a bad omen. That's interesting. I did not know that one. And Sandy says, I don't know why, I just thought of an old Andy Griffith episode. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, she's in West Virginia. I apologize. I think I must have been, I don't know why, but I was thinking you were in the Mississippi area. So that makes sense because we share those Appalachian Mountains, and there's definitely a lot of the stories that overlap. And Dr. Sumner says, my mom is from Glendale. I still have some family there. West Virginia is awesome. So again, and Dee Dee says, I need that book. Most plants I plant die. I was told that means you are cursed and the plant dies to absorb your curse. Very interesting. So there's just like all kinds of these different traditions and folklore and superstitions. Again, we could probably spend a whole episode, and I would really like to dive into some of these specific ones that I know, my grandma used to share with me. And, there was growing up hearing that, it was always very common. And so, like I said, she was born in 1908, and my grandpa, I never met him. He was actually born in 1889. He was 21 years older than my grandmother. And so, so I never met him, but I do wish, if I had the opportunity to go back and, speak to someone who's no longer living, I would love to sit and spend the evening with her just to talk a little more about some of this, because I feel as though I didn't have as much of an appreciation then as I do now. And now I have so many questions. It was just a staple of growing up when we were there, hearing Dad talk about it. Even hearing them talk about the different winters that we have, the blackberry winter, the dogwood winter, the whippoorwill winter, all of those, and being able to predict, by being able to predict the first frost based on the first fog that you would have. The first fog you would have at the end of the summer you could predict the date of when you would have the first frost. So my uncle would always write all of that information down, as well as my grandmother, and they would predict when that was happening. So just things like that I feel like are kind of lost on people today, with just the hustle and bustle and everything going on. I think that there is a lot to some of these superstitions and traditions, signs, omens. And again, not to really jump on different topics, because we were talking about the motorcycles, but I felt it was a good thing to transition, because we do have a lot of people here who aren't necessarily bikers that, excuse me, that may not know all the different traditions and why we do some of the different things that we do. One, for instance, I was talking to Dr. Sumner about earlier. I was trying to find an answer on it, but I couldn't. It was, I had read where it said not to get off. You were supposed to get off your bike on the low side, on the left side, never to get on it, or get off of it on the right high side. And so I never saw anything about why that was the case. It just said not to do that. And so we were kind of talking about that on the phone earlier. But anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and riding with me on this solo night. Like I said, it's kind of hard, manning all the comments. And so I hope I didn't miss anyone. I will go back and look at some of these and try to respond. And if you guys have any interesting superstitions, folklore, anything like that, or any questions, if you have any stories or any questions, please feel free to message me on the Ghost Biker page. And again, we'll talk about this further. Sandy says there's also one about a cemetery. The reason why you drive one way, I don't remember exactly why, but bad luck to go the opposite way. That's a whole other topic in and of itself. I know that, if you want to get into superstitions about death and dying, as well as cemeteries and things, you're not supposed to whistle in a cemetery. Some people say you're supposed to hold your breath when you go into a cemetery, which, as ghost investigators that investigate all the time, I wouldn't make it, because I'm in cemeteries all the time. So, but there's just that's a whole topic in and of itself, of different stories and omens, superstitions, and traditions when it comes to the dead and cemeteries. But that is a very good one, Sandy. David says that the dreaming of chickens and chicken legs comes from Santeria. I can definitely see that. Very interesting, because I know that there is a tie-in with that. And again, that just goes into what I was saying when it comes to the Appalachian Mountains, when it comes to, the very deep South, when you start getting into, Santeria and voodoo and some of the different slave traditions of the Deep South. There are just so many traditions and superstitions. I mean, I'm sure the Southwest and the Northwest, I'm sure a lot of those have some of their own. But I do know for a fact that when it comes to the Appalachian Mountain region with West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, those areas that they do very, very, very greatly, depending on the different holler of the mountain and stuff that you're in. Sandy says that she's heard that about the right side of the bike as well. Peppy says, not a biker, but have much respect and love for all. Thank you. And again, thank you, Peppy, for coming to both of those two bike events. I appreciate that. And thank you all so much for your comments and for joining us, here on this show. We've got, let's see, like I said, I've got a lot of great guests lined up for the next little bit. Next week, let's see, our guest is going to be, speaking of Mississippi, going to be Donald Martin from Old Southern Funeral Home and the Old Untitled Jail. And also he is making paranormal equipment now, very customized pieces. So he's going to be coming on next week to talk about those locations. I'll be talking about my investigations that I did at the Old Untitled Jail, as well as the Old Southern Funeral Home. I know a lot of you guys had seen that episode 2 of season 2. So he's going to come on, talk about all of that. And we've got a couple other different events that I'm going to, let's see, I want to kind of plug here. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. Let me share my screen and make sure that, let's see here, make sure I can pull this up. I hope you guys can see this okay. We've got a great event coming up here on June 4th and 5th. This was actually a postponement from back in March. I know you guys maybe saw the episode where I had Task Force Paranormal as well as the owners of the historic Clegg Mansion on. That event was actually rained out, and so they've got it rescheduled for June 4th and 5th, and it's going to be a great time. If you're not familiar with the historic Clegg Mansion in Athens, Tennessee, I hope you'll go back and check out that episode. We're actually going to have, I'm going to be one of the special guests there, and I'll be speaking, I can't remember the time. I think I'm going to be speaking at 1:30 that day. I'll post that time for sure that I'll be speaking, but I know that Dr. Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal will be there, and Task Force Paranormal, as well as a lot of different paranormal investigators. And they've got a special guest singer. If you all have seen my episode of the Ghost Biker Garage where I had Mother Legacy on, with the date change, they're actually able to perform at the event. So I think that they're going to be performing from 12 to 1, I think. Again, I'll put that information out because I don't have that in front of me. But they're going to be playing live, and then I think they're going to be playing for like an hour. I'm going to speak for 30 minutes, and then they're going to continue out their set. So they're going to have tours of the Clegg Mansion, as well as tours during the day for history, and then they're going to have their Scream Chamber haunt open that evening. So that's going to be going on the 4th. I will be there on the 5th. I know Soul Sisters will be there on the 5th, as well as a lot of other great paranormal investigators. So that's coming up on the 4th and 5th here in June. And then in July, I just announced an event on my website, but I've not announced it on the Facebook page. But on July 10th, I'm going to be up in Oneida, Tennessee for their Music on Main event, and it's their Veterans Appreciation and History in the Streets event that they're having. I'm going to be having a meet and greet there, as well as having some of my historical stuff from Oneida and Scott County there. They're going to have a lot of different stuff on display, and they're going to be doing a Veterans Appreciation, which is something that is also near and dear to me, coming from a family full of veterans. So that's always a great time. And I believe that's from like 5 in the afternoon on July 10th through 8 or 9. But we'll make that announcement on the Facebook page. And then also July 17th, I'm going to be in Michigan at the in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the Michigan Bigfoot Convention. I'm going to be there representing the paranormal, and I'm going to be talking about the paranormal and what I do. I know they've got a lot of different Bigfoot researchers there, the she squatchers, I don't have all the names in front of me. I know that Joe Shortridge from 222 Paranormal will be there, as well as a lot of great speakers in the Bigfoot encrypted realm. So I'll be representing the paranormal and speaking that day. It's going to be a long event. And then I'm trying to get some Harley Davidson events hooked up there in Michigan as well. So that's just a few things that's coming up here in the months of June and July that we'll be announcing soon. And like I said, we'll be keeping up every week with the Ghost Biker Garage. And so also next week, we'll be releasing the video from a haunting ride with Ghost Bikers. So again, I am actually about to hit the road here and drive across Tennessee tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this conversation up. And again, thank you guys so much for tuning in with me tonight with your questions, comments, and your superstitions. And thank you for indulging me with and listening to my stories. So I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed week. And just like I said, keep on the lookout for different things that we'll be posting this week. So take care, everyone, and we will talk to you and see you next week.